Hello everyone and welcome to Spaghettikid's new series, which is Kerbal Space Program. Hopefully this is going to be a really good series. I really love this game. I've got about 70 hours on Steam, so if you like it, let me know and like it or whatever if you really enjoy this episode. And comment if you've got any suggestions or want me to do anything or any challenges. Nothing too hard. I'm not a super pro as some people are, but I'm reasonable. I've got to a few planets, so I'm just going to start a new save, so I'm not all with my old save. So you're completely like with what's happening. So everything's in the sky, you know, because you've watched it. Go there. So I'm just going to resume a save, which is this YouTube one. I haven't done anything yet. I tried to build the previous spaceship, and recording went a bit crazy because all the sounds were completely messed up. Kerbal Space Program decided it wanted to play the spaceship launch kind of noise, the like rocket engines at full blast. So I had to like shout, or I would have had to have shouted in order to have got there. So I'll just load the spaceship I was about to build, which was something I built called Orbiter 1, and I'll talk you through exactly what I've just built. So this is the top module, which decouples here. I'll just remove that so you can see. So there's a Poodle Engine, a small fuel tank, some thrusters, and if you look at the centre of thingy, I've put these RCS right on the centre of mass, which means you only need one set of them. So Poodle Engine, I've got some solar panels, I've got some other little ones that I can extend just for visual things. I also have MechJeb. That is the one mod I'm using, which is MechJeb. It's for convenience, but not for cheating. I'm not automating anything. I will use it to help me plan maneuvers, and I will help it to give me more information, so when I'm landing I'll have a little information kind of thing up so I can see where I'm landing and adjust my like horizontal speed and things like that. I will also use the one thing which some people disagree with, which is Smart Ass, which is the kind of stabilization aid, so you can point and direct yourself. So anyway, this is my like orbit module. I have a docking thing at the top just because it's something that's useful to have in case you have another ship you want to dock with. Some solar panels, MechJeb. I've got 2 parachutes just in case I need them. And I've also got a skipper engine at the bottom, which is the second most powerful, and I've got jet engines, which is something I kind of found from Scott Manley, who you've probably heard of. If not, go and search him. He's a big YouTuber, a lot bigger than me, and he has an awful lot of like amazing videos. He's just so good at Kerbal Space Program, and using jet engines like this is such a good idea. They are so efficient, you end up that you can get to space and you've hardly used these external fuel tanks. And then you've got all this tank here, and then eventually all this tank here. Sorry, I just had hiccups. Okay, so I think that should be okay. So I've named this Orbiter 1. I always name it what I'm aiming it to be. So if it's a moon lander, I'll call it Lander 1, or Moonlander 1, or whatever number. You can call it Alpha, is what a lot of people try and go for, but 1 is simple. And I've also assigned action groups. So 1 activates or toggles the skipper engine, which is the main engine. 2 will activate all these radial jet engines. So hopefully I will be able to get this thing into orbit. So you can kind of see everything there. Important thing to note is the fuel pipes. Without the fuel pipes, this design wouldn't really work, because you need to have the main engine in the middle using these external fuel tanks. Otherwise all this fuel will just end up getting wasted, because the jet engines will literally only use about 20% of the fuel in here, if that, because they're so efficient they just hardly use any of it. And all the oxidizer they won't be using, so you can utilise that. also. Anyway, so this is my kind of orbit module. This is my like getting out of the atmosphere module, all this external thing, and this is my establishing a big orbit, and this is fine-tuning my orbit, I suppose. And then I've got a docking port on the top, which is something to try and get into a habit of doing, because eventually you'll end up that you can dock several ships together if you know what to do. So I'm just going to save and launch, and hopefully this will work, and it won't crash like it did last time after I tried to change the audio settings whilst recording. So it's just loading. It's loading. Okay, so still really loud. Okay, hopefully it won't be too loud, but it might be. If it is, I'm sorry. I'll try and figure it out. So I've also got 0. If I click 0 in the action groups, it's allocated to these solar panels, which is just kind of visual. You don't really need them, but they're a really kind of cool thing to have. So I'm just going to fold them back, because you obviously don't want them out in the atmosphere. Okay, so I'm just going to put a bit of thrust so I can see my jet engines work. It's not as loud as it was before, but it's still quite loud. Okay, another thing is to quickly change my in Smart ASS. I'm going to change my direction to surface 0 degrees, which means I'm facing north, and my pitch to 90, and then I'm going to click execute, and that will automatically keep me going where I'm going. And I'm just going to press space, and luckily I have enough thrust to lift me up. Not very fast, but enough. So now what I could do is just leave it. I could also click 1, which activates the skipper engine, which just gives me a bit more thrust, so I can get up to about 100 meters per second, which is roughly what I want. So get to about there. Okay. And I don't really have enough thrust from my jet engines to do it. Another thing to note is if you go into utilities, you can click prevent overheat and also prevent jet flameouts, and that's a really useful trick to have, because it basically, the amount of times you have like the mainsail engine and you've just gone full power and then it's blown up and you've gone oh, and then you have to retry it. So it's a really useful thing to have. Oh, look at the amazing graphics. You have to appreciate Kerbal Space Program. It's kind of amazing graphics in some ways, but not in others. The kind of quality of the graphics is quite good from a distance. When you zoom in, things do look a bit weird, but they're still pretty good. I'm quite impressed by Kerbal Space Program, really. So I actually want to quickly change this to 90. I usually do it gradually, so I don't click 90 straight away. So I just want to be pointing towards 90. So you could do this manually. I just use mech jump because it's I don't want to say easier, but it's like when you know you can do it, you want to concentrate on doing the kind of bigger things of building ships and stuff, rather than fiddling around trying not to crash them by flying them badly. So now I'm getting to about 90. I'm just going to change my kind of flight angle, and I'm also going to activate my mainsail, not my mainsail, my main engine, and then I'm just going to keep changing this down to about 60, and then 45, and you just want to make sure, click M so you can go to the map, and you want to make sure your apoapsis is not getting closer. If it's getting closer, your ship doesn't have enough power, which sometimes happens. So generally, you can see that just went to 21 rather than 20. That means I'm pushing my apoaps further away, which is good. If you're getting closer to it, unless you have enough time to change your kind of thing, I'm sorry, if you have enough time to make your orbit before you get to your apoapse, that's fine. But if your apoapse is only at like 20,000, so now actually you can see I have the problem that my apoapse is getting closer. So this is an interesting thing actually. I'm going to have to change to a mainsail rather than a skipper. So I'm not going to launch basically. I might be able to if I change this to about 60. Oh, I don't know what I did. So I think I'm kind of screwed. So I'm just going to revert flight to vehicle assembly, and I'm going to change one thing, or two things if you have to change a thing. I'm going to get rid of this skipper, which seems to be crap, and shove a big mainsail on the bottom, which... no, I didn't even put a mainsail on the bottom. Put a mainsail on the bottom. Yes, thank you. I've also got to now go to action groups, go to custom, click on that, and add that to custom 1, so when I click 1, that will activate. Okay, so now we can try this again. So usually you have to fiddle around. I wasn't quite sure. I never really use anything but mainsails as my main powerful engine for getting me into the orbit. But I thought I'd try it, and obviously it hasn't worked. So full power with your jet engines. Only your jet engines to start with, because you don't necessarily need your mainsail to start with. And also quickly go to surface and change that. Although actually, I'm not going to use that. I'm going to click on manual SAS and I'm going to launch. And I'm also going to activate my mainsail just because I can. Get up to about 100. And just keep myself about 100. Also keep an eye on this fuel tank because I will use it up pretty quickly if I don't keep an eye on the mainsail kind of thing. Okay, so I'm just going to rotate myself. So I'm not using mech Chev this time because just to show I can do it. So line yourself up perfectly with as perfectly as you can, I suppose. So you just want to keep an eye on the direction you're going, because you can see I must have been facing slightly higher than 90, because my orbit seemed to be going a little bit in the wrong direction. I want to keep my orbit upwards for the moment. So I'll try and get as close as possible, like that. Okay, so I'm about 85, which is okay. It'd be better if I was going about 100. I can just do that actually. And actually I'm going to want to try and start tipping a tiny bit, just so my orbit starts kind of not circularizing, but starts knowing it's going to circularize. And now I'm at about 10,000. I'm going to want to start tipping over more, just so my orbit really starts turning. And I'm also going to try and get my speed up a little bit more, because there's slightly less atmosphere, so you can be going a bit faster without wasting fuel, basically. So 45 degrees is kind of the angle you want to stay at for quite a long time. And now, as soon as you can hear your engines are about to overheat. Oh, not about to overheat, I just saw that was about to overheat. As soon as your jet engines are about to run out of engine, you can right click on them and the intake will be really low. And you just want to turn that off. now I can see my apoapsis is getting much further away. I can also see the fuel in here. As soon as the liquid fuel gets to 0, I'm going to want to detach these, which is just spacebar. Okay, so now I'm just on this fuel tank, and you can see my apoaps. Another really useful trick is if you click just on the apoaps triangle, it will keep it there, so you don't have to keep your mouse over it, which is so useful. Keep an eye on your fuel tank. If you click on stage only, I think that'll be it. Yeah. So now I can monitor it from here, and I'm just going to keep an eye on this so I can see exactly how it's going. So I've got half of my fuel tank-ish left, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Should be fine to get into orbit. I'm going to go for, I think, 100. And I'm just going to click Add Maneuver. And you want to make it so the your AP and PE, apoaps and periaps, are both about equal, which means it's almost an equal orbit, and then you can also do some fiddly changes. So they're like that. It's a 500 meter difference. So now I'm going to want to go back to this, turn off, well, I don't have to turn off SAS actually. And I'm just going to slowly, I'm not going to use any RCS just because I don't need to. I've got 2 minutes, so I should be fine. So I'm slowly getting towards my node, which is this blue kind of marker, and it's 548. Always try and figure out exactly how long you think it's going to take to change your speed that much. To change it by about 550, which is basically what it is, you're going to want about, it's going to be about 15 seconds-ish. If it says like 2, or if it says 2 minutes, unless you've got a really small engine, then a mainsail should be able to do that quite quickly. I don't know the exact numbers, but reasonably. So I'm just going to want to wait until my node time, which is this, says half of whatever my burn time is, so 7.5 is what we're aiming for. So I'm just going to quickly change, well, speed up basically, and wait till it gets to about 15, and just line yourself up again so you make sure you're actually facing the right way, and then fire. So you can see straight away that it's going to take about the right amount of time. So hopefully, once this maneuver is done, if I point towards the node, I'm just going to try and do it as perfectly as possible. And it's about perfect. So now I can get rid of this maneuver. You can see my orbit is exactly, if I can click on that, 190, no, sorry, 100,926 and 100,000. You don't want them too close, otherwise your apoaps and periaps basically flick all over the place, which gets a bit confusing. You want them about 500 meters difference at least, just so it's not perfectly circular, because otherwise whenever you're using SAS you can see them actually now wiggling, just because I'm doing that. If I use RCS it'll probably do even more. Okay, so I'm in orbit, and interestingly I've still got this bottom module, because that's how efficient the kind of launching from, don't know what I was doing there. yeah, that's how efficient those jet engines are. Those jet engines will get you almost to about 15,000 solely on their own, which means you hardly use any fuel and you can get almost out of the majority of the atmosphere. You get at least out of this really thick atmosphere, and then you're in the thinner atmosphere. So, yeah. Now, I'm going to quickly get rid of that. Smart as yes. Orbit, and just click normal plus. Now this is just quite an easy thing to do. I'm going to quickly turn on RCS so it's slightly quicker. It's quite a useful thing to just get into a habit of doing, is if you point in the normal direction, which, not normal, NML, I think it's normal, I'm not quite sure. It basically means, I'm just going to unfold my solar panels, that the fuel, not the fuel, it means if when you're docking, you won't, your docking port will always be facing upwards. If you're facing sideways in the direction of your orbit, every time you're rotating around the Earth, it's always going to be at a different place. It's not always pointing up. So it'll be pointing left, and then on the other side it'll be pointing right, and then other ways it'll be pointing towards the Earth, or not Earth, the Moon, or the Kerbin, sorry, or away from it. So always try and point upwards. It doesn't matter what angle you are, as long as you're pointing towards this kind of north bit. So, yeah. However, saying that, another thing you can do is if you click off, if I find out which way I want you there, and then go forwards. The optimal for solar panels will be if I faced directly towards the sun. So if I did this, if I point the sun in the middle, and then locked on like that. Now my solar panels will be getting maximum exposure of 1, and that's good. However, it's still much better to point normal. Not really sure why. Well, it's for docking reasons basically. So this ship has got me into orbit, and I've still got this big fuel tank. It doesn't seem very manoeuvrable, but that's because of this fuel tank. As soon as if I detached this, I would then have much more manoeuvrability because I wouldn't have as much weight like far away. So the torque from here would be a lot more able to change my direction. So I wouldn't be taking a minute to rotate once. I would only take a little bit. Okay, so I now know this can get into orbit. So its name of Orbiter 1 was perfect. However, I probably could get this to the moon. The only problem is that I don't have any legs. So what I'm going to do is click on rename vessel, and this is a ship lander probe rover base debris. I'm just going to set this, now it's in orbit like this, as a ship, but I will call it, no I won't, I'll leave it as it is. Usually I'll make things a space station as soon as they're orbiting like this, so I know it's got lots of fuel, which means if I dock with it I can refuel myself. So it has 500 fuel plus another 720. So it's got a lot of this. Is pointless because it's just a big fuel tank, empty, but anyway. So that should be fine. I think I'll finish this episode here. I'll just warp round so till the sun comes out. And we can see the lovely sun rising over Kerbin. Hopefully at some point soon. There we go. So we can see my ship, and we're all good. So if you enjoyed this kind of, not tutorial, but it's almost a tutorial, but it was more just me playing it and showing you how I would play it, let me know if you enjoyed it. Like it if you liked the video, so I know that people really liked it rather than just watched it. And comment if you've got any questions or requests of me to do anything else. I'm going to continue this series just because I love Kerbal Space Program, and if I can record it as well as play it, then it's just a lot more enjoyable to be able to play it like with feedback from everyone else. I love playing games, and when people say, "Oh, try this out and play it like this." So let me know if you do have anything that you want me to try, or just any feedback. I will try and get audio properly sorted before I record another episode, so I'll turn down the kind of rocket noise even more. It's such a kind of annoying thing. I can't exactly figure it out very well. It's really awkward to sort it all out properly, but yeah, hopefully we'll be okay, but it's difficult to say because it's such an awkward kind of audio kind of thing in Kerbal Space Program. So some of the rockets just somehow make huge amounts of noise, which is horrible. So yeah. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, let me know. Comment if you've got any questions or suggestions or feedback. And thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. Goodbye.